katoa.
Mr Speaker.
Lewisa Wall.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Inga mana, inga reo rangatira mā, ngā whānau o Raukawa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. And I specifically want to mihi to Chris, who's here in the House, who has led the Raukawa claim as their chief negotiator for many years now. And in fact, when I went on the Raukawa website, I was really impressed to read your pānui. And in fact, dating back to 2011, Raukawa had comprehensive claims hui right around the rohe of Raukawa. And from my perspective, the inclusive and transparent way that you have led this treaty settlement process needs to be acknowledged. I want to acknowledge the Minister, Chris Finlayson, and congratulate him on the wonderful work that he's doing to enable these settlement processes to happen in a timely manner. And I also want to mihi to Tau Henare in his absence, to Nanaia Mahuta and other members of the Māori Affairs Select Committee, and in fact everybody across the House, because this is the one area where we have consensus, where we are all working together to ensure that our whānau hapu iwi can move on positively into the future. So this area of treaty settlements is one where we have consensus about what's best for the nation. What I wanted to highlight were just a couple of things. Firstly, I do want to acknowledge Wally Papa and others, because I did have a look at that Y443 claim, and he was the initial claimant, and I think we should always remember where processes begin. And so I want to acknowledge Wally and the whānau for, I guess, beginning the kaupapa that the Raukawa Trust Board and the Raukawa Settlement Trust have continued. I want to acknowledge that the deed of settlement that has now been translated into this piece of legislation had 93% support from Raukawa beneficiaries, and I think that we should acknowledge that also the Trust Board was mandated by the 16 marae, and the Raukawa Settlement Trust comprises representatives of those 16 marae plus 10 hapu representatives. And so what we've seen is a very inclusive process, as I said before, that has enabled, I guess, the smooth passage of this bill and the deed of settlement through the rohe of Raukawa. What I've been particularly impressed about, and it was really in a submission by Kataraina Hodge, was the fact that throughout this process, and I want to quote from her submission, she wanted to provide some context in respect of our whakawhanaunga within our iwi. And so the bill itself was carefully crafted to ensure that our whanaungatanga was maintained. And so I want to acknowledge that throughout this process that rangi Māori feeling the ability for everybody within Raukawa to participate needs to be highlighted. What I also want to highlight is that Raukawa Charitable Trust is one of the largest iwi health providers in the South Waikato. So the Raukawa Trust whānau have been participating positively within their community. They have the capacity to deliver health services. From reading their website, they've got a huge focus on kaumātua health, whānau health, the retention of their reo. So this iwi group hasn't waited for this treaty settlement process to get on with the mahi. And I think what this settlement process will do is to enhance the mahi that they're already doing. And so I think we need to acknowledge the fact that this iwi grouping actually have been able to develop their capacity, to develop the capability to deliver not only services for their people, but for the people of the South Waikato. And so I want to acknowledge and thank them for the work that they're doing. When I read the treaty settlement legislations, I'm always really interested in the statutory acknowledgements, because for me, that statutory acknowledgement is acknowledging the status that our iwi groups have as mana whenua of Aotearoa. And it's a status that no other group has. So it isn't about us being an ethnic group or another racial group within Aotearoa New Zealand. It is actually recognising the special relationship that we have. And so the statutory acknowledgements within this particular settlement acknowledges relationship that Raukawa has to aspects of the Waikato River and its tributaries, to lakes, to geothermal sites, to, for example, part of the Kaimai Mamaku Conservation Park, the Pātetere Scenic Reserve, the Arapuna Scenic Reserve, the Kahu Scenic Reserve. And I'm mentioning these names because I think the significance of that statutory acknowledgement actually creates the opportunity for the relationship that both central and local government will have to develop with Raukawa, because it will be about how we manage those sites, the consents that will happen over those sites. So for me, it means that we, or Raukawa in this instance, will continue to have a decision-making responsibility, a formal decision-making responsibility of those sites into the future. And for me, that is the most significant aspect, because forever the footprint of Raukawa will be felt throughout the South Waikato. And I also note that there will be naming rights for certain sites that Raukawa will have, which mean that we will maintain that footprint. The tupuna for Raukawa will forever in our history be acknowledged. And so I'm really pleased to support this bill. I'm really pleased to be a Member of Parliament who has an opportunity to participate in these treaty settlement processes. I'm no longer on the Māori Affairs Select Committee. It was a committee that I was very honoured and privileged to be a member of. And I again just want to thank my colleagues for the way in which they conduct the business of the House. I want to thank our hapu iwi groups for the way in which you've conducted yourself, and as always I want to acknowledge the generosity in this instance of Raukawa to enable us to get to this point in time, and I look forward to both the committee and third reading of this bill so that we can make a piece of legislation that will reinforce the deed of settlement that Raukawa has created. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Raukawa Claims Settlement Bill, second reading.
In accordance with the determination of the Business Committee, this bill is set down for third reading next sitting day. Call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Maunga Haruru Tangatu Hapu Claims Settlement Bill, second reading.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Maunga Haruru Tangatu Hapu